A middle-aged man walked down tiredly in his study. Today it had been 100 years since the old man was born. His life already felt quite exhausted by spending so much time in alchemy. The man walked towards the potion storage cabinet. All those magic potions he had been using to relieve his fatigue and keep him awake while making alchemy for a few days. That's what the old man had been doing all his life. But lately, the potions were no longer reacting on the old man. The exact reason why was because the man was now getting older. Although the old man had slowed down his aging by using potions, this would definitely happen after living 100 years. Also, even with his current skill, the old man still couldn't make an immortality elixir, because he still needed time to make one. So, the old man could not let himself die before the elixir was ready. The old man then sat on his chair and looked at the safe. The man thought it was time to use the potion that had been stored in the safe. So far, after developing all the theories from scratch, the old man was made magic potions with his own special method. The potion stored there was a potion called Rejuvenation Elixir, which the old man had experimented with to turn an old mouse back to youth, but with the previous memories still in the mouse's memory. The experiment was successful, but the problem was, the old man had never tried it on humans. Although the old man often used his body for experiments, but still, the cost of this rejuvenation elixir was different from other elixirs, and the man could not guarantee the dangerous side effects with his life. So far, the old man thought that after drinking the elixir, he would hibernate as his body slowly became young. But the problem was that he didn't know what side effects he would get and how long it would take for results. So far in mouse trials, the duration has been months, so it's possible that for humans it could be years, or maybe never coming back to life. Suddenly, the old man remembered about his mentor, where it had now been 10 years since the old man had last seen his mentor who left him at that time. The old man realized that now there was nowhere to depend on but himself. The old man then took the potion stored in the safe and carried it towards the basement. While walking, he kept thinking that, after all, he didn't have much to leave behind, so there was no problem risking his life by drinking this dangerous potion. The old man continued to walk down the stairs to the basement after deciding to hibernate for a long time. In order to protect his body from disasters as well as foreign attacks, the man had devoted everything he had and used all the techniques he had learned to create a shelter to protect him from danger, while the old man was unconscious during hibernation. Of course, only the old man and his mentor could open the door, so you could say that this place was the safest place in the world. The old man then opened the locked room and entered after a few years to conduct this experiment. The old man then took off his clothes one by one and looked at the clock he had made to find out how long it would take in his hibernation period. After pressing the clock, the old man then lay down on a device shaped like chemotherapy and said goodbye to his old appearance. The old man then drank the rejuvenation elixir while wondering what kind of look would appear when the old man woke up later. After drinking it, the old man immediately lay down and felt a terrible feeling in his body. Shortly after that, the old man was unconscious with the clock ticking. After the experiment, the man now woke up with a body that was now younger, without even the slightest problem. He continued to look at his hands and skin, which now looked firmer, and when he woke up to look at the clock, it was 500. Sure, enough it was now 500 years of time that had passed in this hibernation period. He didn't expect it to be this long, and as he looked at his body in the mirror, the old man was surprised at his youthful appearance. After putting on his clothes and being energized with a young body and soul, the man was now ready for his new life. After stretching his body and putting his clothes back on, Marzan-san now felt fitter, and even thought he was about 18 years old. Marzan-san felt that his body now felt lighter and fitter than it had 500 years ago. Marzan-san also didn't feel any side effects from the elixir, so now he could continue his alchemy research with this body, as well as feeling very fit in the clothes that had been prepared earlier. Then, after everything felt more pleasant, Marzan-san looked at the locked door and was curious about the world after 500 years out there. Marzan-san also couldn't imagine and hoped that the lab was still okay. Then when Marzan-san opened the door and exited the shelter, suddenly the lab was now different, where there was a light coming from above while the shelter was underground. When Marzan-san looked up, he was surprised because there was a large hole that led directly to the sky. Marzan-san continued to be curious about what was happening and if the lab should be out there. Marzan-san then climbed the cliff of the cave and headed towards the top while continuing to think about what had happened to his lab. because the room inside the building was made of a combination of magic, so it shouldn't be destroyed that easily. When Marzan-san managed to climb to the top, Marzan-san was surprised to see the surroundings, which had now become a forest, and there was nothing there, not even buildings and tall buildings around it. Marzan-san was still curious about what exactly had happened during these 500 years. Then Marzan-san used the ability of Water Eyes, which combines blood and underground water by attaching his bloody finger to the ground to understand the situation underground. But it seems that all of that is useless, because Marzan-san also cannot feel and find the debris of his lab. Marzan-san was now frustrated that this were so many rare materials in his laboratory. Marzan-san regretted that Marzan-san had not thought to move all the materials to Selter at that time. What Marzan-san was worried about now was that if his mentor heard about this, he would kill his. Now Marzan-san even remembered about his mentor and was curious about what happened to him now. Marzan-san was curious if his mentor was still alive, because at that time after Marzan-san succeeded with one of his alchemy techniques the next day, the mentor disappeared from the lab. The technique was the hardest technique that Marzan-san could finally use, so at that time Marzan-san thought that his mentor would definitely admit it. But what happened instead was that his mentor disappeared and left him just like that. When Marzan-san was a child, his mentor once said that Marzan-san was still not ready, even though Marzan-san was believed to have a talent that could surpass his mentor. At that time, his mentor also said that indeed his mentor would continue to guide Marzan-san, but only until his skills surpassed his mentor's. So if his ability in the field was enough, then Marzan-san should try to find a way with his own strength. Marzan-san was just downcast and pensive, thinking that if his mentor did not admit it, it meant that Marzan-san was still not ready, like what his mentor said at that time. Then when Marzan-san was pensive, suddenly distracted by a wheel trail on the ground. Marzan-san thought to follow the wheel tracks, and who knows, she could meet other people. As Marzan-san followed the trail of wheels, he saw two people pushing a wooden cart that was stuck because of a broken wheel. The two people were an old man and a young girl helping the old man. The old grandfather and the girl continued to argue about their wooden carriage, while Marzan-san watched from a distance, not expecting that the transportation used by humans 500 years in the future was instead a horse-drawn carriage. It was all impossible because even in the time Marzan-san last lived, people no longer used wooden carriages. Marzan-san now wondered if that meant that the world now, 500 years later, had regressed in civilization. But Marzan-san dismissed the thought as it was too early to tell. After all, the important thing was that Marzan-san was glad not to have to use his alchemy now to find out what was happening in this new world. Marzan-san listened from a distance to how noisily the two of them continued to argue about their carriage not being able to run. The old man told the girl to wait for another carriage that would pass this way, because the girl could not help making the carriage run either. Then suddenly, Marzan-san came and offered his help to them. The girl was so wary that he brandished her weapon and asked who Marzan-san was. Marzan-san revealed that he was a passing alchemist, and if they wanted Marzan-san to help them fix the train, Marzan-san would do it. The two people were suddenly surprised to hear the phrase that Marzan-san was an alchemist. Marzan-san, who was also curious about their strange reaction, felt that alchemists seemed to be very rare in this new world. The old grandfather then said that he didn't care if Marzan-san was a boaster, but if Marzan-san could fix the carriage, then that would be enough. Marzan-san thought that it was rude of the old man to let him, but he didn't thank him at all. Marzan-san took a deep breath and then walked straight over to the carriage. The girl then told Marzan-san that if there was any equipment needed, Marzan-san could get it from the carriage. But Marzan-san said that Marzan-san didn't need any equipment. They seemed to underestimate Marzan-san's abilities, thinking that maybe Marzan-san was an amateur who was just pushing himself to fix a carriage that he had never even done. Marzan-san then approached the carriage and looked at the wheels. It turned out to be just a wooden bearing mounted to an axle like an old-fashioned wheel. Marzan-san didn't see any use of certain technologies, which meant that the current world civilization was really regressing. As Marzan-san continued to think about that, the old grandfather continued to grumble and told her to hurry up with the repairs and not just look. The old grandfather and the girl were really noisy, because they seemed to be in disbelief that Marzan-san would fix the carriage. Finally, Marzan-san rolled up his sleeves and pointed his hand at the wheel. The girl watching was surprised to see a root growing out of the wheel and moving around the axle like magic, and within seconds, Marzan-san had completed it. The grandfather couldn't even believe that Marzan-san had finished the job that quickly. The old grandfather immediately helped Marzan-san to push the carriage, which was up and running. The girl was very surprised and asked Marzan-san what he was doing, as she noticed the wood suddenly swaying. Marzan-san then explained that the axle was chipped due to heat from friction, so Marzan-san simply made another wheel out of wood. In other words, Marzan-san pounded another piece of wood to make a new wheel. The girl really didn't expect Marzan-san's magical abilities. Then, with a very confident pose, Marzan-san said that, as it had been said before, that it was the ability of an alchemist. The old man then gave him a small bag of coins as payment for the repair of his chariot. The bag of coins was 50,000 gil. Marzan-san, who did not know and had just heard about the currency, continued to look at the coin he got from the old grandfather. The grandfather also explained that the coin was also his apology. Then, as the girl and the old man were packing up their luggage, Marzan-san asked the girl what he could buy with 50,000 gil. The surprised girl then asked if Marzan-san didn't know anything about the currency, and asked if Marzan-san was someone from outside the country. Marzan-san then explained that he just wanted to know the value of the gil currency, and it was true that he didn't know anything about this country either. The girl then smiled, as she had previously thought Marzan-san was a vagabond. Marzan-san was at a loss for how to explain all of this to the girl, as there was no way she could reveal that she was from 500 years ago. Then Marzan-san again asked the girl since when the currency of the Ruina Kingdom changed. The girl was increasingly unable to understand what Marzan-san was saying. Looking at the girl's expression, it means that there have been many changes during these 500 years. Besides, the Ruina Kingdom should also be the name of this country. Marzan-san now realized that in addition to the decline of the currency civilization, the country names had also all changed. Marzan-san was really curious about what exactly happened during these 500 years. The old grandfather then called out to the girl and told her to help pack up their things. While picking up all the things to put back into the carriage, the girl grumbled and said that her job should be to escort him, not to help him like this. Marzan-san then asked if they were partners. The girl explained and looked at Marzan-san, and then explained that the old man was her client, and the old man had asked the girl to escort him during this trip. Marzan-san now understood that the girl was a professional bodyguard. The girl laughed because Marzan-san spoke like an old man. As the girl loaded everything into the carriage, she introduced herself to Marzan-san that her name was Tanya. Marzan-san also introduced himself, who was an alchemist, although not so mature. They then shook hands. While helping Tanya-chan lift some of her things, Marzan-san asked if it wasn't too rash to escort herself even though she was a pro bodyguard. Tanya-chan then explained that she actually had a record, but suddenly her partner had some business. When Marzan-san asked about what her partner did, Tanya-chan explained that she didn't know, but it was possible that his partner was dead. Marzan-san was confused as she listened to Tanya-chan say that such things were common. That's why a bodyguard is necessary. While helping each other lift some things, Tanya-chan then asked what made Marzan-san come to this country. Marzan-san explained that of course Marzan-san wanted to research alchemy, and he only lived for alchemy. While sitting in the carriage because she had finished the items she wanted to put in the carriage, Tanya-chan said that indeed her carriage repairing ability was also very useful, and Marzan-san explained that it was the basis of the alchemist. At that moment, Marzan-san looked down and thought that if only Marzan-san could continue his research on the elixir of youth, then eternal life would definitely be achieved. Moreover, if Marzan-san had continued his research, Marzan-san would have surpassed his master. While throwing away her gaze, Marzan-san said to Tanya-chan that now he couldn't do anything because he had lost his alchemy materials and tools. While looking down, Marzan-san regretted it all, because the valuable items were just lost, even though he only left him sleeping for a while. Tanya-chan then suggested that if Marzan-san did lose his alchemy items, maybe Marzan-san could come to the Labyrinth City where Marzan-san could find items about alchemists there. Marzan-san thought that might be a good idea. Marzan-san then asked the carriage master for permission to come with them to the Labyrinth City and return the bag of money Marzan-san had received earlier. Now the carriage began to move. Marzan-san and Tanya-chan sat in the back while talking. Tanya-chan explained that the coin Marzan-san was holding was a gold coin worth 100,000 gil. On top of that, there were large gold coins and platinum coins, but ordinary people like them couldn't possibly own them. The gold coin Marzan-san was holding had a gold purity of approximately 65%. Listening to Tanya's explanation, Marzan-san continued to look at the coin and thought that the engraving was not too complicated and easy to counterfeit. Marzan-san also thought that if the currency was determined by a country, it meant that the decline of civilization was also much worse than Marzan-san had thought. While watching Marzan-san continue to look at the coin, Tanya-chan then asked if it was okay for Marzan-san to return the money, because it was not like Marzan-san could buy the things she needed with it. Marzan-san confidently said that Marzan-san could find the materials herself, and he didn't really need money. The shocked Tanya-chan then asked Marzan-san if he wanted to become an adventurer because so far Marzan-san could only use alchemist. Marzan-san didn't seem to understand what Tanya-chan was saying. Then Tanya-chan began to explain that the labyrinth city of Meyer Heart was a city in the middle of which there was a large cave called a labyrinth, and the labyrinth was managed by the guild. So without permission from the guild, Marzan-san would not be able to just go in and out and had to register with the guild first, so Marzan-san could become an adventurer. But Tanya-chan said that actually Tanya-chan could not recommend it because in the maze there were indeed many valuable items, but it was worth the danger. But Marzan-san casually said that he understood and would register with the guild when they got to town. Tanya-chan was really surprised and did not expect that Marzan-san was not afraid of anything with what Tanya-chan said earlier. Tanya-chan then added that the labyrinth was a very scary place. Even death always loomed over those who entered there. But Marzan-san said that what he wanted now was a place with a lot of quality goods, because even though rare goods would not enter the market in the end, Marzan-san also had to take the goods himself. Tanya-chan curiously asked if an alchemist couldn't fight monsters. Marzan-san took an apple and ate it, and then he explained that was true. He was an alchemist who had no talent in fighting, but an alchemist also had his own way of fighting. So, the point is that if there is good stuff, then an alchemist will still go, even if he has to go to hell. Tanya-chan took a deep breath, and then suggested that Marzan-san should attend the guild's training before going to the maze. While listening to what Tanya-chan suggested, Marzan-san thought that no matter what happened, Marzan-san had to get the items he needed. That was what his master had taught him. Because when Marzan-san went to fight the underworld dragon Basalarmia, Marzan-san took more than a year to make many potions as an alchemy's fighting tool. Marzan-san revealed that at that very moment, Marzan-san almost died, and it was the master's crazy idea to have a child fight a dragon. The old man on the horse suddenly asked Tanya-chan if they were going to camp, because it was getting dark. Tanya-chan then told the man to stop 1 kilometer away, because there was a good place to camp. Marzan-san listened, and then wondered why they had to camp. Tanya-chan replied that it would take them at least another day to reach the labyrinth city. The night passed, and now they were all getting ready to rest, where the old man had also said goodbye to them to rest first. Tanya-chan told the old man to leave everything to the two of them. Tanya-chan then spoke to Marzan-san and told him to rest while she would be on guard tonight. But Marzan-san said that he wasn't sleepy yet. After all, he had also slept 500 years, so he must not be able to sleep. With a smile, Tanya-chan said that if that was the case, then Tanya-chan would make a bonfire and asked Marzan-san to collect wood. Marzan-san then touched a large tree trunk and felt that there was too much water in the tree, so it was not suitable for making a bonfire. Then suddenly Marzan-san stepped back from the tree and unleashed a power where Marzan-san mixed the fire in his hand to enter the tree and turn it into pieces of wood instantly. Tanya-chan, who was in disbelief and shock at the whole thing, asked Marzan-san if it was all alchemy. Marzan-san explained that Marzan-san had evaporated the water in the tree with fire magic, and then burned it, and then returned the wood to become firewood. Marzan-san's abilities were truly extraordinary. Tanya-chan then asked if she could learn alchemy, because Tanya-chan could also use fire magic. Hearing that confession, Marzan-san then asked why she could only use fire. Tanya-chan explained that there was a fire attribute in her, and seeing Joko's ability earlier, it seemed that Tanya-chan was sure that this ability was also related to her fire attribute. Hearing what Tanya said, Marzan-san then suddenly released water from his hand, then turned into wind, earth, wood, and also lightning. Marzan-san innocently asked if she could use all that. Then what attribute was she called? Tanya-chan gawked in stunned silence and couldn't believe what she had just seen with her eyes. Tanya even approached Marzan-san and asked how Marzan-san could use so many attributes in her body, because it was the first time Tanya-chan had seen it happen to a human. When Tanya-chan touched Marzan-san's hand, Marzan-san felt the attribute of fire burning in Tanya-chan's body. So, in other words, Tanya-chan couldn't release water. While watching Tanya-chan, Marzan-san asked if everyone also had attributes. Then Tanya-chan answered correctly that everyone has their own attributes. Marzan-san continued to think that if that was true, then everyone wouldn't be able to live while looking at Tanya-chan's body. Tanya-chan then told Marzan-san to get rid of his gaze because she felt embarrassed to be stared at like that. Instantly, the atmosphere became nervous, and Marzan-san then apologized to Tanya-chan, who immediately ran and said that she wanted to go on patrol. Marzan-san continued to think that it seemed that during Marzan-san's 500 years of sleep, there were many human body structures that had changed. And if that was the case, maybe the nature had also changed or vice versa. Marzan-san then took out his power again by biting his finger and bleeding and sticking it to the groundwater. Marzan-san immediately sensed the movement of monsters and told Tanya-chan that at 3 o'clock there were 12 monsters weighing approximately 60 kilograms. Marzan-san sensed that it was a wolf pack, but Tanya-chan couldn't see it from a distance. But it wasn't long before the wolf pack of monsters came into view and ran around. Then Tanya-chan did not think that what Marzan-san said was true, where the number of wolves was 12. And because of that situation, Tanya-chan then told Marzan-san to leave quickly while she planned to fight her own. Tanya-chan then prepared by taking out her dagger and said that this was her duty as a bodyguard, so Tanya-chan would protect them, even if she had to sacrifice her arm. Marzan-san really didn't expect that Tanya-chan had such good determination. Marzan asked Tanya-chan if she had any chance of winning. Tanya-chan was silent and a little worried, telling Marzan-san that if she fell later, Tanya-chan asked Marzan-san to drink the potion in her pocket. Maybe it wouldn't be very helpful, but it was better than nothing. Marzan-san realized that there was a potion in this era. Marzan then told her to finish everything so Tanya-chan wouldn't have to use the potion. Marzan-san then left and approached the monsters. Tanya-chan still insisted on telling Marzan to go to a safe place because Marzan could get hurt. Tanya-chan continued to yell because even though the monsters looked weak, it was easy for humans to die. Marzan-san was very confident, then told Tanya-chan that actually Tanya-chan was also not a bodyguard, so Marzan-san would protect his own life. Tanya-chan was only worried about Marzan-san because he didn't have any weapons with him. Marzan-san continued walking and approached the monsters and said that he didn't need any weapons because the power of an alchemist is their own blood. Marzan-san then unleashed his power to make a stream of lightning flow through his body. This time, what power would Marzan-san unleash against the wolf monsters, who kept running towards them? The wolf monsters with horrible faces then ran towards them. Tanya-chan prepared to fight and told Marzan-san to get out of there because she was going to buy time. Marzan-san then advanced to face the monsters. Then he released a force from his hand. As Marzan-san raised his hand, several lightning carvings came out of his skin and suddenly struck the wolf that was running towards him, causing it to disappear and suddenly fall to the ground. Tanya-chan really didn't expect that Marzan-san killed a monster using only his bare hands. Tanya-chan was curious and still didn't think Marzan-san could fight. Then she asked about what power Marzan-san used before. Marzan-san then mentioned that it was burning blood. That is an alchemist technique that makes blood as a source of energy and then converts it into new energy in the body. Tanya-chan was completely gawking and didn't expect that an alchemist like Marzan-san could turn his blood into alchemy materials. Marzan-san also revealed, but if he used it too much, Marzan-san might bleed to death. But for the size of the enemy now, it was nothing to worry about. So now they prepared to finish off the wolf monsters that were running towards them. The wolves looked very bloodthirsty, where now Marzan-san unraveled the power from his hands and punched the wolves one by one until they bounced into the sky and died. But when all of them had been killed, there was one more wolf hiding and trying to pounce on Tanya-chan from behind. But Marzan-san immediately quickly kicked the wolf until it bounced off using his very strong legs. Tanya-chan then immediately reached for a tree and looked very tired. Marzan-san approached her and asked if Tanya-chan was hurt, but Tanya-chan tried to calm Marzan-san. She said that she was okay, she was just a little tired. Tanya-chan also added that when Tanya-chan saw the monster, Tanya-chan thought that Tanya-chan might die. Then Tanya-chan looked away, feeling very bad, and apologized to Marzan-san for not being able to help him. Marzan-san was only silent and surprised to hear what Tanya-chan said. then told Tanya-chan not to think about it because if Marzan-san had not met Tanya-chan, then Marzan-san would also be lost in this forest. Hearing what Marzan-san said, Tanya-chan thought that she must be stronger in order to live in this harsh world. Marzan-san then encouraged Tanya-chan and said that Tanya could definitely do it because Tanya-chan was also very young, so there was no need to rush. Tanya-chan then wiped her tears and thanked Marzan-san because Marzan-san turned out to be a very good person. Tanya-chan also felt jealous of his calm nature, even though they seemed to be the same age. Marzan-san then took something from his shirt pocket and said that if Tanya-chan didn't have time to train, Tanya-chan could also drink the potion he took from his pocket. Marzan-san explained that this potion could keep Tanya-chan awake for a few days, and if Tanya-chan drank it, the drowsiness afterwards would just disappear. Tanya-chan, who looked worried, refused and thanked Marzan-san because the potion seemed dangerous and must have side effects. Marzan-san explained that it was not a strange potion. Tanya-chan was surprised to hear that and wondered if Marzan-san was used to drinking such potions. Marzan-san casually said that he drank it regularly instead. They continued to argue and it seemed like Tanya-chan had misunderstood, even though it was just an ordinary potion. Now the sun was rising and they prepared to continue their journey and wake up the old man who was still sleeping in his tent. Marzan-san then asked if the Labyrinth City was a big city. Tanya-chan explained that there were tons of shops and they could buy anything in the city. Arriving at the Labyrinth City, Tanya-chan and Marzan-san got off the train and thanked the old man. The old man also thanked them for their escort, and he was grateful that nothing happened, even though he only had a broken wheel. Even though the old man didn't know what they had experienced last night. Marzan-san then approached some of the houses in the city and found that they were still made of wood. Marzan-san remembered what Tanya said, that this city was a big city, but he didn't see any tall buildings and didn't see any fast vehicles. So, Marzan-san concluded and confirmed that the current world civilization had indeed regressed during Marzan-san's sleep in the past 500 years. Seeing Marzan-san, who was continuing to pay attention to the city, Tanya-chan then said goodbye to Marzan-san because she had to report on her escort mission, so they had to part ways there. Marzan-san also thanked and apologized for troubling Tanya-chan. Then he asked where the guild Tanya was referring to earlier was. But Tanya-chan looked back at him with a worried look and asked if Marzan-san really wanted to become an adventurer. Marzan-san very confidently said that of course he wanted to become an adventurer, because that way, Marzan-san could enter the labyrinth to look for ingredients for the elixir of youth. So if Marzan-san could not research alchemy, then Marzan-san would not be able to live. And another option was that Marzan-san should just die. Tanya-chan was silent, as the statue did not expect such an exaggerated answer from Marzan-san's mouth, and then pointed out the guild around the city where there was a large-looking building there, so Marzan-san would definitely find it soon. Then as Tanya-chan and Marzan-san parted ways, Tanya added a message that actually the reputation of alchemists in this city was very bad, especially among adventurers. Hearing that, Marzan-san then remembered the first time he mentioned that he was an alchemist in front of Tanya-chan, and the old man who looked very surprised. Tanya-chan then added that the potions made by the alchemists in this city were very expensive and did not have any effect. But since there were no other potions, they couldn't help but buy them. Marzan-san thought that it seemed like the alchemists in the town were treated like swindlers. So Tanya-chan suggested not using Marzan-san's identity as an alchemist when registering at the guild later. But Marzan-san said that if indeed her reputation looked bad, then it should be fixed immediately, because she also didn't care if others mocked Marzan-san's physical appearance, but Marzan-san couldn't accept if alchemy was mocked just like that. Tanya-chan was really speechless with the ambition that Marzan-san had. Marzan-san said goodbye to Tanya-chan and thanked her for worrying about him. Then they parted ways there. Marzan-san, who was walking towards the guild to be able to look for alchemy materials, was determined to restore the glory of alchemists in the city again. Marzan-san felt that now Marzan-san finally had a new goal. While watching Marzan-san, who was walking in front heading to the guild, Tanya-chan continued to hope and worry about Marzan-san, who hopefully would not fight there. Marzan-san now continued to walk to find where the Adventurers Guild was, according to the instructions given by Tanya-chan about Marzan-san having to find a large-looking building in the city. After searching and walking through the city, Marzan-san found a building that looked bigger than the other buildings. Then Marzan-san thought it seemed like it was the place Marzan-san was looking for, Marzan-san then entered the building and saw a lot of people talking about the hunt and their rewards after the adventure. Marzan-san did not expect that there were so many people in there, and it seemed that being an adventurer was a popular job in this city. Marzan-san then went to the reception desk in the room on the other floor and asked if this was really the place to be an adventurer. A man wearing a prince-like uniform sat there and asked if Marzan-san was a new applicant, and if he was, then Marzan-san was very lucky. Marzan-san looked astonished and confused at what the man was actually saying. Then the man told Marzan-san to remember the man's face, because the man was the guild master in the labyrinth city named Lazar Gistal. Lazar Gistal, who was so confident while blinking his eyes at Marzan-san, asked if Marzan-san was surprised, but he saw Marzan-san instead go and ask the receptionist next to him and ignore Lazar Gistal. Then Lazar Gistal told him to face him again, and he would guide Marzan-san in this registration. Then Marzan-san interrupted his conversation and asked if Lazar Gistal was a guild leader. But why did he bother being a receptionist? Lazar Gistal, who while acting as if he was a handsome man, confidently said that most beginner adventurers were very cowardly, so that's why Lazar Gistal would guide them directly, so that beginner adventurers would be brave in fighting monsters. Marzan-san, who was snappy, said that he did it all just because Lazar Gistal didn't have a job. But Lazar Gistal denied it and said that his schedule was also busy. Lazar Gistal then looked for a form on the back table for Marzan-san to fill out. While waiting for Lazar Gistal to find the form, Marzan-san looked at several piles of paper at the reception desk. It turned out that it was a report where Marzan-san read there were several complaints about the number of adventurer kills that were not achieved. Besides that the cause of mission failure was that the adventurers played it safe, and so on. Until it made Marzan-san think that there were many guilds in this city, and they were competing for achievements, so Marzan-san now understood why Lazar Gistal was so excited. Marzan-san concluded that it seemed like Lazar Gistal taught beginners to prioritize the number of kills over safety. With the increase in the number of kills, his career would continue to rise. Then Lazar Gistal will use other people as stepping stones so that he can reach the position of guild leader at a young age like today. It turns out that Lazar Gistal is a reliable bastard. When Lazar Gistal had found the form, Lazar Gistal then asked Marzan-san what his expertise was because Marzan-san also didn't carry weapons. So Lazar Gistal asked if Marzan-san was a magician. Marzan-san then replied that he could only use basic magic. Hearing his statement, Lazar Gistal then asked again about how Marzan-san could defeat the monster hunter with his slender arms. Even Marzan-san also seemed to have never held a sword. Marzan-san then put his hands on his waist and said that Marzan-san would fight using alchemy. Lazar Gistal was silent and gawked, then put on a surprised face while listening to Marzan-san, who continued to say that Marzan-san would fight using alchemy. With an annoyed face, Lazar Gistal asked him once again if Marzan-san was really an alchemist. Marzan-san confidently said that he was an alchemist who, although not fully mature, but Marzan still wanted to become a full alchemist. Lazar Gistal then looked at him with a very cynical face, saying that trash alchemists like Marzan-san only had strange goals, because trash-like alchemists were shameless for selling potions that had no effect at all at exorbitant prices, not even participating in conquests. While looking at him with an annoyed face, Lazar continued by saying that Marzan-san was still very young, so Marzan-san should reconsider that. Marzan-san, who listened to her scathing mouth, was even more curious if this kind of treatment was what the alchemist got in the labyrinth box. It turned out that this was even worse than what Tanya-chan had said before. While convincing Marzan-san, Lazar Gistal then offered what if Marzan-san was recommended to become a swordsman who fought at the front. But Marzan-san refused and said that Marzan-san didn't care what Lazar Gistal thought, and still Marzan-san would choose to be an alchemist. Even Marzan-san also added that alchemists were not approved because they could not advance Lazar Gistal's career. Lazar Gistal, who was very furious, then replied that even though Marzan-san was a new person, but how to talk like Marzan-san had known Lazar Gistal for a long time. Then with burning anger, Lazar Gistal shouted so that everyone in the room was shocked and said that the alchemists were just trash, money extortionists, miserly people, and cowardly groups. Lazar Gistal really yelled at Marzan-san and said that stray dogs were even more useful because they could eat their meat, and asked Marzan-san if Marzan-san wanted to be like them. A very calm Marzan-san then let out a long breath and said that Marzan-san wanted to be a full alchemist. Marzan-san was completely fixed in his stance and left everyone shocked at his confession. Lizargastal really didn't expect that the little boy was so stubborn, even though most beginners were very obedient to him. Marzan-san, who was only trapped in a younger body, thought that if this was allowed to continue, then they would still cling to their selfishness. Then with a shout, Lizargastal immediately drove Marzan-san to leave there, because that place was not a suitable place for a trash like Marzan-san. Marzan-san then moved away from there, but Lizargastal, who was annoyed, gave a paper by pressing it against Marzan-san by saying that Marzan-san could follow the map. At first, Lizargastal didn't want to do it, but Lizargastal thought about introducing Marzan-san to other guilds. When Marzan-san looked at the paper, it turned out to contain a map to the Alchemist Guild. Lizargastal then revealed that the rule in this country was that the guild could not refuse new applicants, so the guild gave another recommendation to Marzan-san to register at the Alchemist Guild there. When Marzan-san thanked him, Lizargastal again screamed and said that the alchemist's reputation in this city was very bad. When Marzan-san walked in the city, had to thank the adventurers, but when he shouted like that, Marzan-san had already left his guild. Lizargastal was really very upset. Marzan-san then followed the direction indicated by the map. But when Marzan-san headed to the point where the place was headed, there was no one there at all. However, she saw a sign that read, Alchemist Guild, where there was an old closed building that looked like there were no people, but it seemed to be the place where the Alchemist Guild was located. Marzan-san had now found the Alchemist Guild, and when he went inside there was a man standing there wearing glasses and very neat clothes. Then when Marzan-san saw him, Marzan-san immediately asked if it was really the Alchemist Guild. The man then asked what Marzan-san had come there for. Marzan-san revealed that he wanted to become an adventurer. The man was then immediately surprised and did not expect that there were people who wanted to become adventurers in his Alchemist Guild. Marzan-san revealed that it was true even though Marzan-san was still immature, so could Marzan-san register in the man's Alchemist Guild. Then with a very happy face, the man welcomed him with gratitude and joy, and immediately acted excitedly by cleaning up the chair and telling Marzan-san to sit down and wait, because he wanted to make tea first. Marzan-san continued to watch the man and seemed to wonder why his speech was so excited when Marzan-san had only registered himself. Then the two of them sat down together with a cup of tea that the man had served while giving the form. The man then said so Marzan-san really wanted to become an alchemist. It was a great dream. Marzan-san said that it seemed like his words were too much, because anyone has dreams and desires. The man then smiled and continued that he was just amazed by the young man who had such high desires. Perhaps his elders would also be very happy to hear this. Marzan-san, who looked confused, then explained again that it was the pharmacist who was a member of the Alchemist Guild. So one day the man would introduce Marzan-san to them. Marzan-san thought that it seemed like the alchemists in this city ended up becoming drug compounders, while the master really hated pharmacists, because they couldn't be called an alchemist. The man again added that he was very happy, because it had been a long time since anyone had registered in this guild, even several years ago. Marzan-san, who was writing the form, thought that was why the man looked so excited, because it had been a very long time since anyone had registered in their guild. Then while writing, Marzan-san stopped at a question column where Marzan-san asked if it was okay not to write where she was from, because of course her previous and current residence was different. The man then told Marzan-san to leave that part blank, and now that the form was complete, Marzan said that it was indeed that easy. The man smiled and said that the form was just a formality. He only needed the name, and also what attributes the applicant had. Hearing the man's words, Marzan-san then thought that in today's world, some people only have one attribute that made him stop, and the man asked Marzan-san if Marzan-san did not know his own attributes. Marzan-san, who felt confused, then said that it seemed like it would be faster if Marzan-san pointed it out directly. Marzan stood up and took out all the attributes that Marzan mastered, which were shown at once. The man was then shocked to see that there was someone who could bring out several attributes at once. Marzan-san, who saw the man's reaction, remembered the same reaction the first time Tanya-chan saw him, even though in the past, everyone could use all attributes. The man then paused and thought for a moment. Then he said that it seemed like Marzan-san was one of the descendants of ancient times. Marzan-san was even more clueless about what an ancient descendant was. The man was so shocked that Marzan-san didn't even know that. So the man explained that people in ancient times could use all the attributes, and nowadays at most only 2 attributes can be used. Marzan-san, who was listening to that, thought that it meant that in the present era, the era in which Marzan-san lived before, had become part of history. Seeing Marzan-san's casual reaction made the man ask if Marzan was unhappy, because supposedly if Marzan-san enrolled in the Adventurers Guild, Marzan-san would be treated like an elite, being able to use many attributes. In addition, only 10 people in this country were called descendants of the ancient era, so it meant that the power possessed by Marzan-san was very valuable. But Marzan-san explained to the man that Marzan-san had previously been rejected at the Adventurers Guild. That was why Marzan-san had sought out the Alchemist Guild all the way here, because it seemed that in the eyes of the guild leader, Marzan-san wasn't strong enough to be a part of them. The man had expected that the end would be like that, because Lyser-Gestal did not like an alchemist. But the man also revealed that Marzan-san should be calmer because Lyser-Gestal could not see Marzan-san's true talent. Even the man now felt very happy, and could not imagine the look on Lyser-Gestal's face when he released a fish as big as Marzan-san. But Marzan-san told the man not to put too high expectations on him because no matter how much Marzan-san used magic, his alchemist skills were still half-baked. The man was still very confident, and smiled at Marzan-san. The man said that he was currently going to test the extent of Marzan-san's alchemist abilities. Marzan-san asked what the test was about. The man then explained that this test was to find out how much basic alchemy Marzan-san knew. However, this was not a test to measure Marzan-san's worthiness to be in this guild. Now the man then prepared his test equipment, where among them were how many jars containing plants that had been stored there. Leroux returned with some equipment to conduct a test on Marzan-san. Then Leroux also explained that the test was to make a tranquilizer potion, using the ingredients he had prepared. However, Marzan-san did not understand what kind of tranquilizer potion was meant. Leroux wondered how Marzan-san really didn't know anything in this world when it was the most popular healing potion in the city. Marzan-san apologized for coming from so far away. Marzan-san thought that he knew very little about this world. Leroux then asked if Marzan-san at least knew how to concoct. Leroux then walked over to his closet and said to Marzan-san, what if Marzan-san lent him a book, so Marzan-san could brew while looking at the book. Marzan-san then replied that if it was like that, it couldn't be called a test, and Marzan-san suggested what if Marzan-san tried it from what Marzan-san knew first. Smiling, Leroux then explained that it actually wasn't a difficult test, so don't push yourself too hard, and he would keep an eye on Marzan-san and be available if Marzan-san wanted to ask his about anything. Marzan-san then immediately checked some of the equipment that Leroux had prepared. While looking at some of the materials and plants that Leroux had prepared, Marzan-san recalled what Leroux had said, that this test was only to measure basic skills. But Marzan-san would not play around with the test this time. Marzan-san realized that the ingredients that had been prepared were naigi grass and nyala root. These 2 ingredients were easily available, but the problem was that it was quite difficult in that if they were just boiled, the ingredients could not be extracted just like that. Marzan-san continued to think that the purpose of this test was to find out the characteristics of each ingredient and find out how effective this healing potion was made. And so far, Marzan-san did not know what the functions of the tools that were already in front of him were, so Marzan-san intended to make it in his own way. Marzan-san realized that the key to this test was naigi grass, and in order to extract it, Marzan-san needed a lot of pure water to boil it. Marzan-san then washed the pot he was going to use because if the pot was dirty, then everything would be useless, so Marzan-san had to wash it thoroughly. Then Marzan-san hung the pot on the fireplace and made a fire with his magic. Naigi grass was weak to heat, so the ingredients had to be extracted gradually at a constant heat for the potion to work. Now it was just a matter of time. Marzan-san then asked Leroux if the test had a time limit, but Leroux told Marzan-san to do it as comfortably as possible, so there was no specific time limit. That meant Marzan-san would maintain the flame and produce the potion within 5 hours. Hearing that, Leroux was immediately shocked, because 5 hours was a long time, and Marzan-san should have been able to use a magic tool to boil it. That way the work would be much faster. But Marzan-san refused, because magic tools were difficult to maintain the heat, so Marzan-san would use her own magic. Leroux was worried that Marzan-san might get tired if she had to use magic and wait for 5 hours. But Marzan-san confidently said that she was very strong and did not get tired easily. Leroux then returned to his seat and thought that perhaps it was the power of his ancient bloodline. but if it was completed in 5 hours, of course it was a long time. While opening her book, Ruse really didn't understand someone as skilled as Marzan-san saying that she was still half-baked. But whatever it was, now she could only wait and accompany Marzan-san until it was finished. Marzan-san continued to make her potion until now 5 hours had passed. Finally, the potion was finished. Ruse, who had been waiting until he fell asleep, woke up to find Marzan-san had mixed all the extracts and now the potion was ready to use. Ruse apologized for falling asleep, but Marzan-san said that it didn't matter, because Marzan-san was the one who had taken too long to make it. When Ruse looked at the potion Marzan-san had made, Ruse was surprised that the healing potion looked bright blue and clear, whereas usually the potions they usually made were bluish-brown. Marzan-san thought perhaps Marzan-san had made a mistake, but Ruse denied it and said that the success rate was not judged by its appearance, but by its effectiveness as a healing potion, so Ruse would try it directly on the wound. When Ruse dripped the potion onto the wound on her finger, it suddenly healed instantly. Ruse was shocked to see what had happened to his finger, as there was no healing potion that could heal the wound so quickly. But Marzan-san said that the healing potion was made, of course, to instantly heal wounds. Ruse was really curious as to where Marzan-san learned alchemy from. And so far, all she knew was that healing potions could only suppress pain. But judging by the look on Marzan-san's face, Ruse thought that Marzan-san didn't realize that Marzan-san had made something very special. Marzan-san continued to call out to the dreamy Ruse and asked, even though Ruse was amazed by the potion, if Marzan-san would still be an adventurer. Ruse was completely speechless, and it seemed his only option was to keep the potion and report it to the elders, as it was a rare miracle. After storing the potion, Ruse then told Marzan-san that the test was over, and Ruse immediately gave Marzan-san a guild card where Marzan-san was now officially part of the Alchemist Guild. Marzan-san then thanked Ruse and said that now it meant Marzan-san could enter the labyrinth to collect alchemy materials, because that was the goal from the start. Ruse then advised Marzan-san to go to the center of the maze and take the monster subjugation request. Then Marzan-san could get good money and materials there. After hearing Ruse's advice and words, Marzan-san left right away because if he didn't leave now, then Marzan-san wouldn't be able to rent an inn. Ruse was amazed at how energetic Marzan-san was, and they parted ways there. After learning about Marzan-san's amazing abilities and potions, Ruse thought it was time to go to the elders and report on the miracle she had seen this afternoon. Several people were fighting a bull monster in the fire maze on the 22nd floor. After cornering the monster, all of them who joined the second party of the Adventurer clan or the Fire Dragon Envoy seemed to have succeeded in paralyzing the monster. But suddenly the bull monster rose again and made everyone seem to have been overwhelmed, making the party vice-chairman and Paris very surprised to see that the monster could still move. When the monster began to attack, someone came to stop his big axe by saying that they should not be afraid and stay calm as much as possible to avoid all attacks from the monster. That person was the party leader named Augen. Now everyone who heard the order from the chairman began to move to attack the monster again. But the power of the monster could even break Paris's sword. Seeing Paris's cornered state, the monster suddenly attacked Paris until it bounced off and hit the cave wall. As Paris began to lose consciousness from hitting the rock, the monster immediately moved quickly towards him and hastened to attack with its huge axe. When the monster began to hit, suddenly the monster fell. It turned out that the monster was defeated by Augen to save Paris. The chairman was really amazingly great. He defeated the monster very quickly. And even the chairman had also defeated other monsters that were fought before. Now they only have to collect the loot they have taken. Everyone did not expect that the chairman defeated the Fire Minotaur alone. Then when the chairman looked at Paris, Paris was seen crying and told him to stand up. Paris, who felt very helpless, then apologized, because in the middle of the battle, Paris had been careless because of his carelessness. Also the sword was broken. But the chairman smiled and said that even so, Paris had the courage to face the monster, and being able to avoid a fatal attack was a good Augen-san, stroking Paris's head while saying that Paris was still growing. Paris continued to stare at the smiling chairman, and couldn't help but cry and thank him for all his guidance over the years. Other colleagues also immediately embraced Paris and said that Paris should not be careless because in such a position they might die. The deputy chairman then asked the chairman what they were going to do after this, because if they continued a little longer, then they could fulfill their target and even get more than their target. but the chairman told them to just go back and join the first party because just in case, they also had to save their energy first. Paris continued to watch and stare at Augen and thought that the chief was so great that he even prioritized the safety of his comrades. Even during training, the chief taught them how to protect themselves. Then the chief also gained the trust of people in the clan because of his high concern for other colleagues. Paris felt very grateful to follow Augen and that it was the right choice for him. Then the chairman asked the vice chairman about how many potions they had left. The vice chairman then explained that they still had 3 tranquilizer potions and 2 apprentice potions. Paris asked if they were also using apprentice potions because he had heard that a new person was making these potions, so the quality was still unknown. However, the vice chair said that this was why they were giving it away for free, and that it would be more beneficial if they used it. It was also very grateful because potions were very expensive. Then the chairman looked at one of the potions that had caught his eye. The vice chairman explained that the potion was called the apprentice potion because it was a different color from the others, so he separated it so that it wouldn't get mixed up. As they continued to look at the beautiful potion, suddenly one of the other colleagues ran over in a panic and said that there was a serious situation, namely that other adventurers had lured 2 minotaurs here and then they ran away. The chairman, who was very upset, said that they were cowards because they were adventurers who ran away from monsters and changed their behavior patterns. Paris continued to ask why a rookie would be on the deepest floor. Wasn't it unnatural? The leader then explained that this might be because it was all the work of the first branch of the guild because lately they wanted to quickly get achievements to the point that even rookies were sent to the deepest floors. Paris was very worried about that because it was the same as making beginners into pawns. As they continued to talk, suddenly someone came scared while being chased by 2 minotaur monsters behind him. And now the chairman and others prepared and asked if they were still able to fight. As they prepared to attack and hold off the monsters from the oncoming side, another companion suddenly mentioned that another rookie adventurer from the opposite direction was also carrying 2 minotaurs. Now they were surrounded by 4 minotaurs. This was a predicament where the leader thought that if this was the case, there was no chance of winning, so the leader planned to use himself as bait. Then he went forward and left them all, saying that they should retreat. Paris and the others wondered if they retreated how they would escape if they were surrounded like that. Then for a moment Paris realized that the chairman had used himself as bait to save his other colleagues. Paris and his other colleagues continued to run away from the chairman and even offered to help the chairman. But the vice captain said to keep running and not to talk too much. Paris really grimaced, not expecting what had to happen before his eyes. 30 minutes ago, another colleague reported to the chairman that another rookie adventurer from the opposite direction also brought 2 minotaurs. Where previously there was a rookie adventurer also bringing 2 minotaurs towards them, everyone was shocked that they now had to face 4 minotaurs. The chairman, who had no other choice, then ordered them all to retreat and said that the chairman would use him as bait, so that's when they had to escape from there. Just as Paris and the others were shocked to hear what the chairman had said, they were startled by the scream of the rookie adventurer, who had been captured by the minotaur and crushed using its grasp with great ease. Paris grimaced and asked the chairman not to do that because they wouldn't leave the chairman alone either. But the chairman continued to tell them to leave because it was an order. Paris continued to insist, saying that he would not obey the order. But the chairman, who had no other choice, snapped at Paris and said if Paris stayed here, then Paris would die like those cowards. Paris really had no other choice, where the vice captain also said if they stayed here, then their party would be wiped out, so they had to run according to the chairman's orders. Then Chairman Augen told Paris that the duty of the old man was to risk his life to protect the party. So the chairman asked them to let Augen fulfill his responsibilities as their chairman with a sad look. And then the chairman looked away and told them to leave immediately, because then he would look cool. Paris really couldn't hold back her tears to let the chairman die, just to save them. After that, all the comrades and other members went to escape. As they stopped at a place where the vice captain said that at least they wouldn't chase them this far, so told the other comrades to check the equipment while resting. Paris, who also still did not accept having to leave the chairman, and told the vice captain that he could not leave without Augen-san. The vice chairman, who was furious with Paris, who also didn't understand, said how Paris was still saying that. The vice chairman also understood Paris's feelings, but they couldn't do anything about it. Then Paris suggested what if they asked for help from the first party, so that after that they could return to Augen-san's place. But the vice-chairman continued to argue, and said that the chairman would not be able to last long against the 4 minotaurs. Besides, going back and forth around the maze was also time-consuming. Paris, who still insisted on saving Augen, then got support from other colleagues that they had the same opinion as Paris, and even one of them said that if the chairman was there, then he would also agree with them. But now the vice-chairman really had no other choice, because the order to retreat was an order from the chairman himself. The deputy chairman, who was suddenly pensive and remembered the chairman's face, then immediately changed his orders and told them to ask the first party for help. Now everyone was excited, and the vice-chairman was on the move because they didn't have time, so they had to run as fast as they could. At the same time, Chairman Augen-san was facing 4 minotaurs at once, and even with great skill the vice-chairman was still able to avoid the attack. In the end, the chairman took a potion and drank it, and then challenged the minotaurs whether they were having difficulty, and this was the extent of their strength. The very annoyed minotaur then returned to slash his big axe at the chairman, but the chairman managed to avoid it. Chairman Augen continued to withstand the attacks given by the minotaur. The chairman continues to use self-defense techniques by absorbing power with the sword, and spreading throughout the body is a fire dragon protector. And this is the technique the fire dragon envoys passed down to them. Despite the defensive techniques, the leader was able to hold off the minotaur very easily, and the goal now was to buy time for the other comrades to escape. As of now, the leader has no intention of attacking because that's why the leader is holding out a little longer. The 4 minotaurs then jointly attacked the chairman using their respective axes, causing the chairman's armor to be damaged. Now the chairman was completely cornered. The chairman, who was resting on the sword stuck into the ground, then looked up at the sky and realized that now only the apprentice potion remained. The chairman thought that with this kind of injury, it would be like pouring water on a hot stone, after which the chairman would only have to endure. The minotaur attacked the chairman even with 2 attacks at once, which made the chairman bounce and helpless with the deadly attack. The chairman now lay limp and helpless while holding the last potion in his hand. Even now his vision is starting to go blind, and he can't see anything, but the chairman is still determined not to die first. When Paris came to the place where the chairman was, Paris found that the minotaur had now grabbed and lifted the chairman and only had to kill him. But Paris immediately screamed at the monster and told the monster to let go of the chairman because the enemy was him. Then sure enough, the monster immediately threw the chairman. At that time, the chairman could hear the faint sound of Paris and ask questions about what Paris was doing there, even though the chairman had ordered them to run away. Now the minotaurs began to attack Paris. Paris completely stole the monster's attention from attacking the chairman any further. Paris then led them away from the chairman's body, while the first party prepared to help them by shooting arrows from all sides. Now they prepared to attack the minotaurs. With their fighting skills and magic, one by one, the minotaur was beaten to a pulp, and they were even able to cut off the giant minotaur's hand because of the sharp sword. Then the first party leader approached Paris and thanked him for spurring the monster. He is the fire dragon messenger from the master clan, Zardis-san. Zardis-san then told Paris that the rest was left to the first party, and the only problem was that Augen-san was still alive. Paris and also Zardis-san then approached Augen-san's body, who now realized that Augen-san was having trouble breathing, and also his body had many wounds, so it seemed that Augen-san would not last much longer. Paris, who was very panicked, immediately approached Augen-san and shook his body while saying that help from the first party had arrived, and the vice-chairman was taking the potion, so Chairman Augen-san had to survive for a while longer. Paris grimaced while continuing to hope that the chairman could survive and not die. Paris then remembered about the potion given by the Alchemist Guild and told the chairman to drink it. Zardis-san then asked about what potion Paris was holding because the color was very strange. Paris explained that the potion was given by the Alchemist Guild under the name Apprentice Potion. Realizing that the potion came from the Alchemist Guild, Zardis-san immediately took a deep breath and said that it didn't seem like it would help much, and that expecting something from a potion like this was pathetic. After giving the potion to the chairman, Paris and Zardis-san continued to look for ways on what they would do next, but Zardis-san said that unfortunately, there was nothing they could do so far, other than hoping for a miracle. But suddenly the chairman held his chest and felt his body warm in addition to the pain slowly began to disappear. The chairman, even though it seemed like he had died. Then the chairman suddenly woke up to make Zardis-san, and also Paris shocked. How could Chairman Aogen-san wake up with that many wounds? Hearing their complaints, Aogen-san then realized that previously one of his ribs had been broken. But now the chairman felt that nothing had happened to his body, and it was like nonsense because it was impossible for broken bones to just heal. The chairman, who then realized that Zardes-san was there, asked why Zardes-san was nearby. Paris then explained that Zardes-san had come there to help her, and now they were all staring at Paris and asking if it could all be thanks to this apprentice potion. Zardes-san then grabbed her and then tucked up her sleeve and cut her arm with the sword. Zardes-san then immediately dripped the potion onto the wound on his hand, and sure enough, everyone was surprised to see the wound disappear and heal instantly. They did not expect that the potion really worked immediately. Aogen-san then said, "Isn't this apprentice potion made by an apprentice in the Alchemist Guild? But it seems impossible if a beginner makes it." Zardes-san then said while looking at the potion, "But it could be a mere coincidence." Then Zardes-san asked about the state of Aogen-san's body, and Aogen-san said he felt his body back in shape, and there was no more pain. While staring at the potion, Zardes-san then asked Pyrrhus to go to the Alchemist Guild and contact them and find out who the person who had made the potion was. Hearing that order, Pyrrhus immediately went to the Alchemist Guild, while the chairman Aogen-san asked Zardes-san if he intended to kidnap the person who had created the potion. While straightening his clothes again, Zardes-san said that he just wanted to say thank you in person for saving his colleague's life. Chief Aogen was astonished and smiled, and said that he didn't expect a rational person like Zardes-san to act emotionally, and then asked if Zardes-san would be so happy if Aogen survived. Zardes-san, who kept his back to her, said that Aogen shouldn't get carried away because if they could have a good relationship with the person who made the potion, it would benefit them in the future. A shocked Aogen-san then asked if Zardes-san was planning to make a connection with that person. Zardes-san confidently said of course, because there was no way Zardes-san could make an effort without producing anything. Elder Aogen-san was overwhelmed to see such an ingenious person like Zardes-san in his master clan. Meanwhile, Marzen-san, who had been heading to our maze, was at the entrance to the maze, and when everyone had entered, Marzen-san noticed that the guard was asking for a fee to enter the maze. Marzen-san then approached the guard and asked if Marzen-san had to pay an entrance fee to get into the maze. In the city center, when Marzen-san took the request, there was no explanation about it. The curt guard replied that it would be explained anyway because it was common for adventurers who wanted to enter the labyrinth to pay an entrance fee first. Marzen-san smiled at the rude reply and said that she actually didn't have any money, so he at least wanted to earn money to rent an inn. The guard then shooed Marzen-san away, and he didn't seem to care because no money means no entry. Marzen-san really couldn't negotiate with the guard. Marzen-san continued to imagine that there were a lot of alchemist treasures in the labyrinth, although there were also many dangerous monsters inside, but at least Marzen-san could find the treasure that was sleeping there. Marzen-san took a deep breath and thought that so far, Marzen-san had become an adventurer in order to enter this place, but instead had no chance to enter because he had no money. Then Marzen-san said to the guard that he had a good solution, which was to pay later. Suddenly, Marzen-san burst through the gate and left the guard behind. The stubborn guard immediately chased him and told him to stop because he couldn't do things like that. Careless people who couldn't pay the entrance fee would only become the food of monsters. As they continued to argue, it turned out that Tanya-chan was also there to see Marzen-san, who seemed to be held back from entering by the guard. Tanya-chan immediately pulled Marzen-san's hand and gave money to the guard and said that Marzen-san was actually her colleague who suddenly disappeared. The guard counted the money and let them in. Now they entered the maze together. Marzen-san apologized for troubling Tanya and promised to reimburse her. But Tanya-chan said that Marzen-san didn't need to do that because Tanya-chan was also grateful to have met Marzen-san. Hearing that made Marzen-san confused as to why Tanya-chan was grateful to have met him. Tanya-chan just smiled and said that Marzen-san would find out later. Then suddenly, Tanya-chan took out a piece of paper with a picture of a mushroom and asked Marzen-san if Marzen-san knew the mushroom. Then Marzen-san, who knew the mushroom, said that the mushroom was called Bakuin Take, which is a deadly poisonous mushroom. Tanya-chan then explained that she was actually asked by her acquaintance to collect the mushrooms immediately, but Tanya-chan was very afraid if she had to look for them alone. Marzen-san then smiled and said that he would help her. After all, Marzen-san was also not in a hurry, but in return would Tanya-chan help her to complete the mission of the follower rabbit and horned turtle meat on the first floor. Tanya-chan who noticed the mission, said that the first floor was the place they were on now. Marzan-san said that earlier at the request center, Marzan-san heard this request for beginners, so that way Marzan-san could get money to rent an inn. Tanya-chan grimaced and said that it was just the opposite, because most of the monsters on the first floor had already been hunted down. After all, the monsters on the first floor were too easy for Marzan-san. Marzan-san felt like it was a trap. Tanya-chan then calmed Marzan-san down and told him to cancel it, so they hunted Bakuintaki on the 6th floor. Marzan-san heard that, and was shocked to realize that they were going straight to the 6th floor, where he had just entered. Tanya-chan then told Marzan-san to be quiet, and just follow her directions. Later, Tanya-chan would also divide the results fairly to Marzan-san. Marzan-san had no choice but to follow Tanya-chan. They then began to descend the stairs, and Marzan-san felt that the maze was a little strange, and also that he did not expect it to be this big. Tanya added that there were a lot of things they didn't know in the maze. In addition, the upper floors had also been secured by the adventurers, and on the 3rd floor, there was a larger city. Marzan-san was surprised to hear how deep underground there was a city. They continued walking. Then Tanya-chan pointed out something in the distance and said that behind the wall was the City of Beginnings. There was a city built on the safe zone. Many adventurers live in that city without leaving the labyrinth. Marzan-san then asked about what the safe zone was. Tanya-chan then added that Marzan-san could see different colors of soil around the wall, and the white area was a safe zone so monsters wouldn't approach those inside. Marzan-san then touched the ground and thought that it seemed that this labyrinth was not bound by the laws of nature outside. Marzan-san thanked Tanya-chan, who then smiled with red cheeks. Now they have reached the 6th floor. Tanya-chan then explained that the monsters around there were a little stronger, so they had to be careful. Marzan-san felt that the place was so vast that he could even see the mountain in the distance, and asked if they were underground. Tanya-chan just smiled and told Marzan-san to continue